Your Excellency Peter Obi, former Executive Governor of Anambra State. I don't even need to say, I've just gotten information that just my photo with him is trending in Malawi like crazy. Today, I'm here to deliver this lecture, but I have a confession to make. I say things as they are. So if anybody gets offended, I am sorry, but that's how I'm born.
To some persons, this is laughable, but to me, this is not laughable, but it is a message to everyone about the personality of Mr. Peter Obi. This happened in Anambra State University, Oka, that is Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka today. The former president of Malawi, Dr. Joyce Banda, has said that uniting Africa under the name of United States of Africa will stop exploitation of the continent's natural resources. She said the neo-colonial attitude of the West towards Nigeria can be stopped through unity among African countries. The former president spoke at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka, during the 12th annual Zik lecture series in honor of late Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Speaking on the theme, Reclaiming Zik's World, Climate Justice and Africa's Sustainable Development, Banda lamented that Africa was not completely free, given the fact that there is a monumental exploitation of the continent's natural resources by her former colonizers. But she reinstated that the leaders of African continents are contributing to this exploitation. They are aiding these foreigners to exploit our natural resources. There are so many things she said in this video that you would like to watch to the end.
People have articulated the great Azikiwe's story, where he was born and so on, history. I will skip that and talk about this great man as Africa knows him and what I think he stands for. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the habit of getting to a place for the first time and finding what I can learn from that country. During the elections of this country, I was privileged to be requested by America to lead the observer team of NDI and IRI. I don't know why, but they just felt this African woman will lead this observer team. While I was here, Arise Broadcasting Channel asked to interview me. And one thing I learned for the first time in Nigeria, the question that came from the anchor was, what about vote buying in Malawi? And I said, what is that? Because, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I had never heard about vote buying in my life. Where I come from, the last elections of 2020, the sitting president used the TPEX to change figures. Our award-winning judiciary nullified the elections. Distinguished ladies, so when I went home, being interviewed how Nigeria was, I told them about this question, and Malawians were amused. We learn every day. Vote by. Today, now to my speech. I have decided that I will broaden my theme. We will touch a lot of issues, at the end of which I will ask questions that you will take home, because Africa needs answers to the issues that are affecting us. Nobody is going to come into Africa to do this for us. We must do it ourselves. And the Zik of Africa, the great Zik of Africa, led the way. Today, 16th of November, is not an ordinary day. Nnamdi Azikiwe would have been 119, as you've heard already. He died at the age of 91 in May 1996. We are here to honor the life of a gallant fighter for human rights and justice, a man that embodied humanity and servant leadership, a man who we are and have continued to celebrate, the great Azikiwe of Africa. We are also a few weeks away from October 1, the day that he became first president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1963. A formidable journalist turned political activist and president, whose leadership acumen made the colonial powers try in vain to block his ascendancy to the presidency. I have therefore always wondered why, when we talk about our revolutionary leaders, our founding fathers, we will mention Nyerere, Kaunda, and we mention Mandela, and often leave out Azikiwe. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is your duty as Nigerians to amplify this name. This is no small name. Azikiwe was a great man, just as great as Nyerere, as Kaunda, as everybody else. Nobody is going to do it for you but yourselves. I'll give you an example of what I did myself. Kamuzu Banda attended the first founding meeting of the Organization of African Unity. And in 2013, we were celebrating 50 years. And I got to the African Union headquarters, and they had put all the names on the wall of people they honor and recognize as our founding fathers. And Kamuzu Banda's name was not there. His picture was not up. And I told the organizers, I told the African Union, I'll go back to my hotel until that picture is up. We must do the same for Azikiwe. We must never allow his name to be omitted, because he's a great son of this continent. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, these lecture series are a befitting celebration of an African giant who, through the power of his pen and paper here in Nigeria, Ghana, and across Africa, before independence, gave us a platform to identify ourselves as proud Africans, and consciously ignited the flames of colonial liberation across the many colonized countries of the African continent. And please follow me. I'm going to talk about women of Nigeria. And I want us to keep in mind that women of Nigeria, of Malawi, of South Africa stood up with their brothers to fight for self-rule. We're not just sitting home. I'm therefore honored to be here as we celebrate Nnamdi Azikiwe legacy. I'm also humbled that it pleased the convening committee to consider me to be the first woman leader on this lecture series. I hope many more women leaders in various sectors of our African societies will have this honor and privilege to share their thoughts and join the rest of the continent in celebrating the great Zik of Africa. I am grateful to Senator Ben Obi for traveling all the way to Malawi to come and request me to come here as guest speaker. And I'll tell you why. I had come a few years before on the invitation of a certain foundation, and I was treated very badly. Somehow, in other countries, when we go, they want to treat us differently from our male counterparts. But what I didn't realize, that I was mistreated until a fellow Nigerian woman came and told me, "Do you notice anything different?" I said, "No." In 1 hour, it was rectified. But then I made up my mind, I was never coming back to Nigeria as speaker. So when our chief senator wrote to say he was coming to Malawi, and told me what it was about, my husband said, "Oh, I thought you are never going to go to Nigeria again to speak." I said, "Yeah. Well, but my brother chief came to Malawi anyway. And when he said, well, we want you to give a lecture on Azikiwe, Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first to jump from his seat was my husband, not even me. Because this is a great man that we honor, even in that part of Africa." Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this presentation I will interrogate and the intersection of current state of development in Africa, governance, climate justice, and other development-related issues that I think require our attention and action. So I have themed my discussion Reclaiming Zeke's World, Climate Justice and Africa's Sustainable Development. I deliberately added the sustainable development because we are going to go on a journey this afternoon. Bear with me, please don't doze. We have issues to rectify. As Africans, nobody is going to do it for us. Allow me, therefore, to start by going into the history of Africa. We were colonized by something like 80 plus years as African countries. And for all those years, we produced raw materials for Europe and what I call the global north. And in the meantime, they emitted emissions and destroyed our climate. And as it turns out now, it is the global south that is paying the price. That is what we must bear in mind this afternoon. Colonization still has a bad taste in our mouths. Decades long after our hero, like Zeke, too stood up and demanded what belonged and still belongs to us, which is freedom and our wealth. It has been argued in other quarters that time is past for us to keep blaming some of Africa's challenges and state of affairs on colonization and that ended decades ago. There's a case to be made either way, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Most African states are really independent from their colonizers. As to what extent that independence means remains debatable. We have seen some former colonial powers continue to control how we should lead our lives, and in the process cause economic and political instability. You have heard of the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization applied in some West African countries by the French government, through which they are bonded to colonial power, including control of their hard-earned reserves. In 1947, the pact, this 1947 pact has just been renewed 2 years ago to further enhance the colonial masters' hold and control of those countries. Can we therefore say the whole Africa is free? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this pact was designed to help France maintain control over its colonies. I therefore hold the view that unless we rise and fight together, as the governor said, stand united, we are not completely free. These are facts that one cannot wish away. Isn't it a fact as well that when colonizers left, starting with Ghana 1957, they left broken education systems, broken health systems, agricultural systems that were in tatters, that we had to start from scratch with zero resources. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, therefore, colonization, industrial revolution, looting of African resources are interlinked, but have also led to climate change. I don't have to remind this audience that through colonization, Africa powered the Industrial Revolution and continues to power their economies, even now. We as a continent are paying for sins we did not commit at all, but emanating from our being colonized. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa's sustainable development, or lack of it, therefore, is directly linked to climate change. Africa continues to be at the receiving end of climate change effects, with countries in the global south greatly affected by severe drought, floods, destructive storms that are tearing down infrastructure and sweeping away crops, leading to economic and political instability in some countries. These are countries that are already struggling to recover from global economic shocks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, climate justice is therefore critical to holistically address challenges that most African states are encountering in their efforts to attain sustainable development. The global north, as the highest emitters of greenhouse gases, has a moral and financial obligation to help developing countries, and particularly Africa, mitigate global warming effects. By the way, because of the noise I've been making on this matter, in April of this year, I was appointed the Pan-African Climate Justice Champion to amplify our African voice on the loss and damage agenda. From here, I've been invited by the President of Angola to go and discuss peace in Africa. From there, I've been invited by President Ramaphosa to go and interact with our male counterparts. But from there, I'm going straight to Abu Dhabi. I want to sit there when we discuss climate justice. So climate change is no longer a theory or a future activity. Climate change is no future tense. It has no future tense. Climate change must be discussed in the present tense. It is a current norm, and we must aggressively mitigate or adopt to the changes to sustain our generation. We have a responsibility to preserve our future and our children's future. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this then brings me to the issue of wealth, natural resources. We are told that as a continent we hold 30% of the world's minerals. And I have argued that we may have more, even more than this. But yet, we have some of the poorest nations in the world. We, in state houses, those of us who call ourselves presidents and governors and leaders, must tell ourselves every day that the natural resources of our land is God's gift to his people, and they don't belong to our pockets. My appeal to my fellow leaders is that, first, we must inform ourselves that that wealth is not ours. If our country has diamonds, it belongs to the people. It's not ours. And as leaders, we are just custodians of that wealth on behalf of the people that we lead. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a famous quote everywhere in the world that Joyce Banda of Malawi once said, "Leadership is a love affair. You must fall in love with the people yourself, and the people must fall in love with you." If that is inculcated in your mind, if it sinks, you will not touch a single diamond that belongs to the people. We also have timber, we have fertilizer, we have fertile agricultural land, and lots of thermal and solar power. We as a continent are therefore not poor. I have dreamt of a day when such resources shall be used to uplift people's lives, providing them with clean water, easy access to health facilities, and education for their children. I still have that dream, that we shall bring meaning to our political independence. I also look forward to the day when African leaders shall learn to protect this wealth on behalf of their people. Just like Botswana. I think I've seen a lady from Botswana here. In Botswana, when you get into that country, you don't even see a single diamond anywhere. It is highly protected. But you can hear every day that Botswana is one of the richest countries on the continent. They have the highest reserves. And I pay tribute to Botswana's founding father, Seretse Khama, who, when they discovered the diamonds, he made sure there are measures put in place that it shall not be easily accessible. And this sitting president now, I'm told he has said, no export of our raw diamonds, but also investors that want to come and invest in mining in our country, 50-50. You are not going to exploit Africa all the way from wherever. You are going to come and it is going to be 50-50 with the people of Botswana. So when somebody in Botswana gets land, he will go to the government to get a tractor. And then he will go and farm. And he will go back to government to get seeds and fertilizers free. And you send his child from standard 1 all the way to university free. That is what I'm talking about. When a country is rich, the wealth belongs to the people, and the leaders must ensure that people are enjoying that wealth. I have always imagined that if Azikiwe, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe had been alive, this is the kind of leader we were going to have. Unfortunately, his tenure was cut short. And me as a politician, I do understand, oh my God, you don't know what we do to each other in politics. But I wish he had been given enough time, because he had laid the foundation for the prosperity and unity of this country called Nigeria. It is pleasing to note that African countries like Zimbabwe and Ghana now have taken the resolute measures to impose strong regulatory measures on exploitation and exportation of their precious minerals. As a continent, we must be vigilant and stop these odd and late-night flights that land in forest airstrips and fly out with our precious stones to unknown destinations. I don't know if you know this, but there are some countries on the continent, when you fly, you see strips, airstrips, and they will come and land at night and load. Nobody knows whether with the knowledge of the leaders, but they are able to land, load, and leave the country. Here in West Africa, one country has demonstrated that if you change that narrative, if you take control of your minerals, you can become one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So, this should be inspiration for us. This should encourage us. We are a rich continent. We are a huge continent with abundant arable land. That's why sometimes I laugh when I see the map of Africa against the world. They put it, they squeeze it so that it looks small. I don't know why they're aiming at us. They must be thinking we have no brain. But we have a continent where America, Europe, and India can go in all at once. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is heartbreaking that in spite of this wealth, Africa continues to lose her resources through illicit financial flows. The African Union in 2012 commissioned a survey under President Mbeki. It is called the Mbeki Report. where they had to look at how our money is moving from one place to another. It breaks my heart that African leaders are called corrupt. But then when our resources leave at night by planes or through this report, they are not, those minerals are not going back to Africa. So this is a situation where we all must take responsibility. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Mbeki report identified that multinational corporations are the biggest culprit of illicit outflows, followed by organized crime. That's why we have to be vigilant. We have unfortunately weak governance capacity in most of our countries, and this has created a favorable environment for illegal business to thrive, the panel added. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this raises some questions on my mind. One, why is it that our African leaders, we African leaders, are not raising our voices on this malpractice and call for immediate action by the African Union to protect our African wealth, natural resources that are also key in the implementation of our own governing agenda? Number two, and this baffles me even more, these illicit outflows from Africa are domiciled in the West and some tax havens. Why isn't the West aggressively pursuing these criminal enterprises and be true partners in Africa's social and economic development by returning that money back to Africa? Countries continue to struggle to get the money back that was illegally externalized into overseas banks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the foreign countries, I was laughing the other day, they have even got the audacity. When they return the money to the country, they ask the country, how are you going to use it? How did you use it? You must be accountable. Oh, you were not accountable in the first place when you took our money. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all this makes me wonder, what would great Azikiwe have done to correct this injustice? Why is it that our generation isn't moved to stop this illicit flow for the sake of the general good of the Nnamdi Azikiwe legacy? As a continent, we are not just losing these huge resources. This corruption and illegal externalization of our resources is a direct contribution to the current suffering of our people through economic stagnation, squeezed fiscal space for infrastructure development, and natural disasters. On the point of natural disasters, Malawi this year had been devastated by Cyclone Freddy that left over 1,000 people dead and 2 million people displaced. The president of Malawi appointed me goodwill ambassador for the reconstruction, the post-Cyclone Freddy reconstruction. So we are building houses and we are distributing food. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and as I have discussed, and what I have discussed so far shows that there's a direct impact on all these challenges on our women and girls. Men as well, but they have told us that the face of poverty are women and girls. As we speak, and I don't know how this is acceptable, as we speak, 50 million girls are out of school in Africa alone. They are abused, they are overworked, they get into early marriages, hence highest victims of maternal death. I don't even want to go into harmful traditions that the children face. These poor African girls. If it is in Malawi, they are cleansed by age 9. I don't want to go into what cleansing is because it will make us sick. If it is Kenya, they are mutilated. If it is Nigeria, not only are they mutilated by the preference of a boy child, is killing us too. When you are married, it is expected that it's better to have a boy than a daughter. And you panic as a woman that it be a boy. If it is a girl, it's not my fault. Go and read science books, it's not my fault. But these are the challenges and the traditions that happen all over Africa. If it is in Ghana, then maybe it is Trokosh. And they banned this practice in 1995, but we still have 1,400 women still in the bush under the Trokosh tradition. If it is Cameroon, then this child by age 10, breasts are coming out, then it is breast tiny. I was talking to a girl in New York. I said, let's go back to Cameroon and fight breast tiny. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, well, when the breasts start coming out, they take a hot rod and they press on your chest. And she said, is that what my mother was doing to me? Up until that time, she's a university graduate, she's working, she didn't know she was breast ironed. We had to phone her mother there and then, who admitted to say, well, it's tradition. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, equally, women are critical human resource on the continent of Africa. And it is a resource that is in abundance. Women are the majority of the African population and are critical players in both formal and informal business sector. I have always said, and when I said this in Namibia, when President Nyoma was guest of honor at a business forum, I said, and I quote myself, in our African traditions, where men eat first and best and most, men have become the primary beneficiaries of our economic activities. Therefore, our brothers should help us excel in business, because at the end of the day, when we do well in business, our family enjoys better health, better education for our children, and better nutrition. A McKinsey Global Institute report shows that women contribute 37% of global economic growth when they are economically empowered. And I have said that when women are assisted with economic empowerment, it is a key to social and political empowerment. Because in our nations, when we campaign for political office, we have to use a lot of money. And when we don't have money, we don't win. But our communities would benefit from a good leader in us. But we can't win because we have no money. It is worth knowing as well that our African peace security mechanisms have increasingly recognized how critical women are on mediation. So we are demanding that we should sit in those committees and participate in mediation and peacemaking. It is, however, disheartening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that these women, these girls, are being exploited by peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers. The reports are there from DRC. Now we are getting reports from Haiti as well. So we have evidence that our women should be protected. In spite of all these challenges, women continue to excel. I'm proud to be associated with the historical fact that Africa has more women leaders, presidents, than America itself. I was honored at the UN, at the embassy of the African Union 6 years ago, me and Ellen Selif, and a Nigerian lady living in America stood to ask a question. And she said, "Ma'am, help me. I was born at home in Africa, in Nigeria, and I am resident here for most of my life. I go back and forth, and I ask my fellow women in Africa to say, let's rise, let's fight, let's raise our voices, let's demand that we should have equal representation." So I asked her, I said, "This country where you live, how many women are in parliament?" 18%. Have you yet achieved in 200 years equal pay for equal work? Not yet. How many vice presidents have you had? None. How many presidents that are women have been to your state house? Nobody. I said, then what makes this place better than Africa? You should be proud of your Africa, because Africa has produced 6 female presidents. Rwanda holds the highest record of women's representation in parliament on earth, not just in Africa, in the world. 64% and 37% in the Senate. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the continent boasts of having produced all these women. My friend Ellen Selif of Liberia transitioned from war to peace. We make better leaders, we take risks, we fight corruption. It fights us back, because when you decide, I'm going to arrest you thieves, they'll fight you back. They're not playing, they have resources to do it. You have to decide as a female leader, do I want to stand for truth or not? And when somebody asked me, and that somebody was my own husband, Richard Banda, he said, be prepared to exit when you have started arresting thieves. I said, yes, if that is the price I have to pay, there is life after presidency, but to jail they will go. And as I'm talking to you now, some are still in jail. My husband told me he's one of the finest lawyers Malawi has produced. He has been Chief Justice of Malawi and Swaziland. I don't know how many people have done that. He told me that when you're standing for the truth, be resilient and be persistent, because nothing will happen to you, especially with a country with an independent judiciary like Malawi. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I wanted to ask a few questions, because then I have got this speech that will be given out, but I thought in the interest of time, I should just say the following. Meanwhile, the representation of women in Nigerian politics has been going down since 2011. This is a country of great women, great men, great achievers. You are leading in sport, in music, in everything. The African women from Nigeria are leading WTO, United Nations. In fact, I was saying in another speech somewhere, one day we shall have a prime minister in London from Nigeria. Can happen. So the question that bothers me is, why is the same not happening in Parliament? These last elections I came and I watched my fellow women cry, trying so hard. As it turned out, what they had sent me to come and discuss with President Buhari a year and a half ago was 6%. And President Buhari said, Madam Joyce Banda, we will take the bill to Parliament. And our distinguished president did just that. And the bill ended up in Parliament, and it was thrown out. So what do we do? As long as women are sitting out of that august house who is looking at issues that affect women and children. I am so proud to be saying this here because I have my distinguished brothers here that can help us change that narrative. I have been asked, are you a feminist? And I've said yes, but I'm an African feminist. I don't fight men. I'm never rude to them. I don't confront. I engage them because our brothers. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so here are the questions that summarize what I've said, and that forms the questions that we should ask ourselves leaving this place. I would like to ask that the global south messed up our climate, and they don't deny it. They have admitted. When some billionaire drives to your house, breaks your gate, admits that yes, I broke your gate, and you ask that person to fix the gate, is it wrong? They came, they colonized us, they messed up our climate, they must pay for it. The question is that too much to ask? Number two, we are not going to play the blame game. They must just come forward, and we have tried it in Malawi, engaging them nicely, naming and shaming, and they come. And we are implementing projects at grassroots. Number two, girls. Is it okay, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that 50 million girls are not in school? When you go to Lagos in the city, you drive around, they are carrying mangoes and papayas and what selling in town. Their brothers are in school. Where is the mother? Why are our children not in school? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all those traditional harmful practices, it is us, women, when we stand together, that can eliminate them. As for women, we are not asking for anything new. African women have been leaders on this continent, even before colonization. Sometimes when you research, they say the reason why we slowed is because those who colonized us didn't know what to do with us, because in their structures they had no women. But we were already leaders. So all we are saying, we are back. Can you please space be created at the table for us to participate? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can I ask my brothers and sisters, particularly my brothers, to take note? Next time I come, I'll ask my governor, how many women have you taken on board? It's just a simple, innocent question. He will not even be angry with me, because he's my brother. The most painful issue with me today is about the youth. I have helplessly sat and watched our young people run from one country to another looking for opportunities. Because where they come from, there are no opportunities. So they end up in South Africa, and South Africans end up in Morocco, and Malawians end up in South Africa, and they're subjected to xenophobic instances. They are killed, they are beaten. They are even dying swimming to Europe on the Mediterranean Sea. So this is a call on my fellow leaders to say we are obliged to create opportunities for our young people. They have been raising their voices for a long time. We are not listening. And if we are not listening, you know what will happen? While we are comfortably sitting in the State House, another leader will emerge for the marketplace. We shall not even know what beat us, because they are not playing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, leaders, we have agreed the wealth in our countries is not ours. So if it is Nigeria, Botswana, Malawi now, it has the largest deposits of rutile. When we get that out, It doesn't belong to any leader, it belongs to the people. Our own citizens must feel that they are rich and from a rich country. Illicit movements of our wealth out of Africa can be stopped, and the African Union and ECOWAS must get involved in this matter. And the countries are running to us for help to resolve the pact for the continuation of colonization, and instead of helping them, we are condemning them. It won't help. It's counterproductive. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what these countries in West Africa need is support, not condemnation. Our institutions should be in place and take action as soon as possible. Now, President Tshisekedi of DRC has announced that I don't want peacekeepers in my country. So all of us were surprised. But there are so many that are saying the same. As it turns out, on the 4th of November, a drone was caught in the bush. A UN drone with its logo full of gold and guns. So he was vindicated. What I want to say is to ask the UN to investigate all these reports, because African countries need to know. We have always complained of our president's leaders being corrupt. Now there's a whole crop of leaders who are saying enough is enough. We shall fight corruption. We shall fight abuses. The best African Union and ECOWAS and the SADC can do is to listen and do something about the situation. I would like to end by saying, may the spirit of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, may his vision continue to propel us to make Nigeria and Africa a great place for our children. Thank you. May God bless you.